It's 9 a.m. somewhere.
Somewhere.
Let's call the meeting to order for Deschutes County Board of County Commissioners. It happens to be March 6, 2024. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do have citizen input. Rondo.
Here we go. Good morning, Commission. I'm Rondo. I've lived in Bend for over 3 decades, and I wanted to talk about this this thing we have here, citizen input. It sometimes changes a little bit during campaign season, and we don't usually talk about campaign season up here, and I don't usually like to refer to campaign season from up here, but I will this morning. Almost didn't get that out. Take a deep breath. So the thing is, it's a 4-year anniversary of COVID for us, and when all impacted this part of the election cycle 4 years ago. And we were also freaking afraid and uncertain about things during that whole process all the way to November. We hardly really actually talked about it, at least not rationally. And the thing is, I understand that all you electeds are human too, and are subject to the same frailties that the rest of us are. And I would like to have a conversation now. So when the next pandemic comes, we will have had a rational conversation outside the middle of a pandemic, which we know how those conversations didn't happen 2 years ago. And so I'm suggesting that this campaign season, this next half a year, will be an opportunity for us to demand from our candidates, and not just the candidates, but those positions that are occupied by others, because I think the conversation should never be 1/3 or 2/3. It should be active, whether you're running for office or not. And this is a conversation we haven't had yet, and I want it to be a public-based conversation. I would love to have this conversation come from this office, from this board. But if you don't do it, I will. Thank you very much for your conversation, for your consideration and your conversation. Thank you very much.
Yes, Rondo, thank you for pointing out what we were dealing with 4 years ago. So, yes, challenging times. Where did natural immunity go? That's what I did ask about that a lot. I was, yes, natural immunity. It's very interesting. Apparently I have it because when I had COVID last, I was in a room with someone who had COVID several months later, and I did not get it. So that was the good news. So I believe maybe perhaps natural immunity was the protecting factor. Are there any other raised hands? Okay, Ryan, please join us today.
Can you hear me?
We can, it looks like you should be fine.
Okay. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Last week, I prepared and presented a solution to the problems the county created by citing.
Can you raise it louder? Yes, please. Thank you, Stephen. Go ahead, Ryan, try that.
Okay. Last week, I prepared and presented a solution to the problems the county created by citing a halfway house for felons and sex offenders in a diverse, lower-income residential neighborhood full of parks and children. The solution involved allocating a quarter-acre portion of unused land on the public safety campus for an equivalent or better parolee housing facility. This location provides convenient access to public services, public transit, jobs, and shopping without threatening the safety of existing neighborhoods and children. This location is also supremely convenient for parole officers to simply walk over and check in on parolees. instead of having to regularly drive across town to the triplex on Wilson Avenue. Commissioner Chang then objected to the solution by saying, "This in some ways is basically a proposal to create an annex to the jail at the public safety campus. If we want to create an annex to the jail, we might as well use the jail, and we are not allowed to use the jail to detain these people who have been released under supervision under current law. These are people who have been released from prison or released from jail and are allowed to be out in the community under supervision. Putting them in the shadow of the jail is not a good fit for that purpose." I believe these are baseless claims and weak arguments for not pursuing a mutually beneficial solution to this issue. These statements also seem to prioritize the supposed feelings of parolees over the safety of neighborhood residents. In response, I would like to say the following. First, by residing a quarter mile from the jail, parolees would not be detained. They would be free to come and go as they please and live their lives in the community. Second, if parolees can secure their own housing elsewhere, presumably they would be free to move out and live there. This program is to provide housing to parolees that can't find housing otherwise or elsewhere. Third, I shared this concept with Fran, the outside house manager, who's currently residing at the Wilson triplex, and he said he saw no reason why this alternative location would not work. I would like to ask the commissioners to prioritize the safety of its constituents in consideration of this issue and pursue a mutually beneficial solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And a helpful addition to your proposal, Ryan, would be a thought process on where these services, these transitional housing services, are going to be provided in the time period that it takes to develop said new facility a quarter mile from the jail. I'm guessing that with permitting, construction, and other factors, it would probably take a couple of years to develop said facility, plus the issue of raising funds in order to construct said facility. So it would be helpful to have a complete proposal from you to hear where you propose the services are going to be provided in the time frame that it takes to develop said facility. I'm sure we'll hear about that next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. Are there any other raised hands? Doreen, please join us.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, Doreen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak and for a little bit quieter week. I really appreciate that. Whatever you guys did, thank you. It's been tough. I wanted to talk on some of the items on the agenda that I don't think you're going to have any public input on. So, transportation system plan. As you get the Powell Butte Highway roundabout underway, I still find this to be deceptive. Have you made it clear to taxpayers that part of this plan is to move the highway to provide more free parking to the airport, privately owned by the city, providing extra freebies to private for-profit businesses? Are you also moving the highway to extend runway as airport requested? The pollution and noise is destructive to our outdoor lovers' way of life, children's educations, and nearby residents, farms, and wildlife. I see in your environmental plans, I do wonder, Central Oregon, why there's still nothing for monitoring of how much pollution. I see Central Oregon Health Council Behavioral Health has a surplus funds. I wonder why you have surplus funds without a single study on lead impacts to children from the highest lead polluting airport in the state, according to EPA's 2020 NEI. You're going to keep up with the American sick care model rather than preventative care. Lead impacts are permanent, lifelong, and contribute greatly to mental health problems. And you still don't have a single monitor or accurate flight tracking to know flight paths of flight schools maneuvers must be moved off resident homes. Oregon statewide planning goal number 1, the first priority is comprehensive community involvement. Please use those funds to address the lead pollution impacts. For example, study the number of heart attacks, hypertension, ADHD, and violence within 2 miles of airports, underhold patterns, and at schools within proximity of this. Doubly benefit our community by doing as Goal 1 suggests and requests to colleges build this into an environmental health or community health and or sciences class, like Washington did in the Move Up study. This gave relevance to the students involved and greatly improved the relevance of their education, and it has helped protect their community from substantial impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doreen, for joining us today. Are there any other raised hands? Thank you, Stephen. Let's go to our consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
And I will second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Mm.
Okay, we go now to item number 6. Tariq, good morning.
Commissioners, for the record, Tariq Rawlings, I'm a senior transportation planner with the Community Development Department and the County Road Department. Before you today is first reading of ordinance 2023-017. This is related to the county's transportation system update, transportation system plan update for the years 2020 to 2040. This follows public hearing processes throughout mostly late 2023, and then specifically following the deliberation processes that concluded on the 14th of February. And so this is the first of 2 required readings. The second, should this first reading kind of go according to normal procedure, then the second reading would be 2 weeks later. So that's really the only information I have for you today and next steps. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on the materials before you today.
Oh, thank you for doing that.
Nice and hot today.
Yes, another challenging day. So Tariq, I did hear from community members in Black Butte about the pathway, but the pathway is in our plan because I was the only dissenting vote, correct?
Correct. The majority of
The board voted for it.
well, correct in that there was a vote to remove the priority status. That was really the only impact. Exactly, the Black Butte Ranch Sisters connection is still in that list. That was the original draft, so they changed their priority status column was removed from those proposed trail connections.
Okay.
So I'll acknowledge that we did receive some messages about the Sisters to Black Butte Ranch connection, and I support having these connections just mentioned. It's a point A to point B connection, kind of generic from our point of view in the Deschutes County's transportation system plan, not a project that is implemented under the TSP. It's just a reference to community connections. It traces back to, as I say, when I was on the Park and Recreation District in Southern Deschutes County, there's opportunities out there for multimodal transportation. We've got paved path in Southern Deschutes County now in the ODOT right of way. People walk it, bike it, skates, just all kinds of different things. Mothers walking strollers. So, I mean, there's a vision out there of, not cars on the road. So as I say, I support having it in here, and it's not a project, as I say, to be implemented by our road department. It's a shame that the folks, it's such a divisive issue. The email saying, I can't believe you support this. Well, it's just a connection. If somebody's going to do it, Trails Coalition, community members, federal, state, there's a lot of players there that somebody might do it. So I think we're in a good spot the way we have it written up in our transportation system plan. And we've already deliberated on this, just some more words around it.
I mean, the one thing I would add is in response to some of those constituent comments we received from residents of Black Butte Ranch, they said, well, we sent you, a lot of signatures representing opposition to this project. who are you comparing that to? And one of the things I emphasized to people when I replied to them was that on the other side of the equation, we received a letter from the sister city council representing 3,000 city residents that said that they wanted to have the pathway included in the TSP. So it's there's all kinds of ways to count levels of support in our community for various things. And in this case, I thought that the letter from the sister city council requesting inclusion was important. And again, we removed any priority level from these paved pathway projects included. We did not reference any specific alignments or locations for these pathways. This was really just a statement of, it was a reflection of the hopes of many people in our community that someday there will be paved pathways that connect our major communities. And I also pointed out to people that when you think about connections like Bend to Sisters, the reality of what we're seeing is that very small segments get built one at a time on these projects. And on Bend to Sisters, we're just seeing right now a paved pathway from Bend that doesn't even get all the way to Tumalo yet. It only gets to the old Bend Redmond Highway. So I just emphasize to people that we would probably see the same thing with this. We at best, in the next decade, we might see maybe a Tollgate to Sisters connection, which would be of great value to people from Tollgate, I believe. So that just a couple of more thoughts in response to some of the public comments we received.
Well, are there any other comments then from the board, or do we want to have a motion?
So I'll move approval of the first reading of ordinance number 2023-017 by title only, the Transportation System Plan update.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So just acknowledging a lot of great projects in here. Remember that we've got a big list of projects, safety improvements, capacity improvements. This is in preparation also for the transportation discussion at the legislature next year, a transportation package that'll come around. So it's great to have this landed with our list of priorities in support of the 2025 session for the legislature also.
Okay. So Commissioner DeBonne,
Voting yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
the chair votes yes. So thank you, Tarek. Approval, first reading by title only of an ordinance repealing and replacing the Deschutes County Comprehensive Plans Transportation System Plan. It's ordinance number 2023-017. So we'll see what in 2 weeks.
Exactly. Next steps will come back for second reading on March 20th. So 2 Wednesdays from now. So we'll do a similar process then. And I thank you for your time, commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we have item number 7.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Emerson, Budget and Financial Planning Manager. Today, we are looking at the allocation of ARPA funds for ARPA administration expenses and eligible costs in the district attorneys and for the Victims Assistance Program. There isn't a resolution for this, but we do need a motion for the obligation of ARPA funds. Basically going back a little bit in time here in August, after the board went through and did a lot of ARPA allocations, there was $92,182 that was set aside for eligible Deschutes County reimbursement. And then at the same time, we made obligations of $550,000 to Veterans Village for expansion and ongoing operations. Due to some of the requirements of ARPA funds, that wasn't the easiest revenue for them to use. So actually return the ARPA funds. We reimburse them with general fund dollars that they can use to continue to do those operations. And so we have $550,000 in ARPA returned funds too. We are here today to ask for $480,182 of those dollars to go to the district attorney's office and VA for eligible victims assistance for eligible costs. And what that will do is those were previously general fund costs, so that will bring general fund back to the general fund for discretionary use for this board. The second part of this motion is that we are recommending 162,000 of those dollars go towards Laura Skundrick's position. It's a regular duration position that's being phased into the budget, and we came for that position a couple years ago and showed that in terms of budget and ARPA, for some of our comparables, we were actually less than 2 times what other counties had in terms of FTE, and so that position was approved. And at the time, with kind of how quickly we were expending, we thought that maybe we might even be done with ARPA by fiscal year 24. So we only asked for funds to cover through there, but we still.
Dan,
Mhm.
why would you think that when the program goes through 26? Like, who had that thought?
I did.
You did. Well, okay, you admitted you did, because it's like, yeah, it's got to be done by 26.
Right. At the time, we had expended almost, I believe, like 33 out of 38 million. And yeah, yes, correct, Commissioner. And so we are here requesting that 162,000 for Laura's position. And what that does is that saves on ISF costs, because normally that would be within the finance department, and other departments would charge for that. And we see that position being a 0.5 this year, but kind of split between ARPA and budget, and then hopefully narrowing off in 25 and 26. But you never know with ARPA and if there's other return funds. So that is kind of the motion today to move approval of this ARPA allocation. Are there any questions about the details of this, or questions about ARPA in general?
So you're saying in actually 26 and 27, it's going to be 0.33 for ARPA then.
We believe that. We believe that we are almost expended, and we do believe that we have returned all of our reimbursed funds. So we have some more quarterly reports to do, but we do think in 26, especially in 27, there will probably be a large closeout report. We also have some annual local assistance, the LACTIF ARPA funds that have annual reporting. So we do believe that there will still be a need for some ARPA in 26 and 27 before we can move straight into before that position will be completely budget allocated towards the budget.
Well, for me, this just reminds us what a great financial position we were in. As I say, these dollars came down to local jurisdictions, and we were writing checks out to organizations and efforts all around us instead of having to use them internally to backfill. So, I mean, it was a good point that we had, and this is definitely a wonderful opportunity to dial in some of those dollars here a couple of years later, getting the right funds in the right places. So, yeah, I'm real supportive of this, and knowing that we were able to write out big community supportive checks to a lot of different organizations and efforts.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting to reflect on what we have accomplished for our community with these ARPA funds. Right up to today, providing support for the district attorney's office and victim assistance programs. This kind of reshuffle being tied to expansion of the Veterans Village, or continued operations at the Veterans Village, and all of that does require administration. So, and I do believe that ARPA funds are an appropriate place to pay for ARPA administration. So I appreciate the way that this allocation is structured.
So Dan, the 480,000 plus, is that actually going to the victims assistance then? It's going to the DA's office, but to the victims assistance.
There's eligible costs actually in both funds. And so the DAs and the general fund themselves, and victims assistance is we subsidize them with general fund. They're a different fund, and there's eligible costs for ARPA in both funds related to the work that they do. And so we'll be reimbursing ourselves for those general fund costs previously in both funds.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move approval of ARPA allocation of $162,000 for ARPA administration and $480,182 for district attorney's office victims assistance eligible costs.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, we come to item number 8.
Morning, Commissioners. Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. Dan Kiefer, Accountant.
Good morning.
So we are here today with an update to County Finance Policy F7 Bank Accounts and Cash Handling Policy. With its proposed to replace prior policies F7, F8, F9, and F11. So included in the packet is a revised bank accounts cash handling policy document. There's quite a few pages. You'll notice on pages 828 to 832 in your packet is a clean version of the draft. And then a red line version of all those 4 policies are included in your packet on pages 818 to 827. The cash handling standards and practices, it's a separate document that's included on page 806 to 812 in your packet as well. That document is not formally a part of the policy, but it's a procedure document that will be on the finance website as instructional and informative guidance for departments. And that's considered a living document with procedures changed and updated as necessary. So stepping back a little bit, staff have reviewed the bank account and cash handling policies, and we recommend combining the 4 individual policies into one, since the topics are related and cover duplicate, same conversations. There previously, again, as mentioned, we had a separate policy F7 for opening bank accounts, policy F8 petty cash policy, F9 cash over and short reporting policy, and F11 cash handling practices policy. As you can tell, they all relate to cash, and sometimes it's difficult for employees or departments to know, well, which policy does it relate to when they're all speaking to the same thing. As you know, we've been coming to you, as you may remember, updating our policies over the past year. This is the 4th one that we're updating, and this is just part of the process. So the review process that we undertook included finance staff, including 2 CPAs with a special focus on internal controls. The Office of County Internal Auditor and our County Treasurer as well have all reviewed the changes in our legal department, and we also send it out to all department heads for comments as well. This policy was last updated in January of 2007, and a review of the policy was necessary not only due to the amount of time that had passed since the last review, but also due to an audit that was completed by the Office of County Internal Audit. There were 2 audits, one audit 1920-11 issued in June of 2020 that recommended an update to policy to allow finance to allow finance the authority to manage increases and decreases in petty cash. The audit in number 21/22-1 issued in September of 2021 recommended a policy change to address the requirements for cash change issuance and its accountability. Those audits were completed prior to my arrival, but as a result of those audits, those changes are included in these proposed recommendations today that the board is considering. So in addition to modernizing and combining the 4 individual policies into one, there are 4 really updates that I just wanted to point out for the board's awareness. The first one is authorization of new bank accounts. Previously, the current policy states the Board of County Commissioners has to approve a new bank account. However, what we're recommending today, since it is an administrative process and procedure, that the internal control we have for that is that at first a request for a new bank account, which is rare, by the way, but if there is, it would first be reviewed by the county treasurer as the first point of contact. He would gather the information. If it's acceptable, he'd forward that to the chief financial officer. And finally, if that continues to be a viable option, then it would be approved by the county administrator prior to their authorization of a new bank account, and to maintain an appropriate level of internal control. So there's still multiple eyes on it before someone's able to go out and open up a bank account in the name of Deschutes County. And just as a point of clarification, so you know as well, one of our mitigating internal controls, we have actually Dan Kiefer here, our accountant. He does send out annually letters to our local institutions and verify bank accounts that we have under our name and compares it to the list that we have. And so that internal control practice as well. The second change is the cash handling standards and practices. This is really the intent of today is to establish a policy, but the cash handling standards is more about a procedure. So we want to remove that from the policy. The policy still references that document, but what that procedure document is, it's more of a living document that it's more of a checklist for departments to ensure that they're meeting all the requirements. And so the reason why procedures aren't in policies because they're usually a lot more detailed and provide information, but it's also so it can be updated as needed with technology changes and other internal control changes that we have. So that's the other change we have. Cash funds, we are as recommended by the two audits, we are recommending that the CFO has authority to increase or decrease the petty cash and change funds. We only have 2 petty cash funds in the county, so it's petty cash funds in the county, so it's not much. And change funds are limited, and all of those changes go through our accounting system as well, and there's journal entries, and we reconcile those as well. So those are the major changes that we have. There is one final change to page 828 in your package, which is the proposed clean version of the bank account and cash policies. On section B, where it says applicability, currently it reads the policy applies to all county departments, offices, and county service districts under the governance of the Board of County Commissioners. That line was included in policy F11. However, when we're combining all these policies, talking with legal, we don't think that phrase is necessary. So the recommendation is to amend what's submitted in front of you today and just have this policy applies to all county departments and offices, period. And that would capture everyone that's applicable under this policy. So with that, before I open up to questions, it would be the recommended motion as stated in your staff report, except as amended stated today. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions. And again, Dan Kiefer's here. I just want to acknowledge he did a lot of work on combining these policies, looking at internal controls, working with all of our teams and with departments for feedback and the Office of Internal County Internal Auditors. So thank you, Dan, for that.
Okay. To quote your word, you said rare. It would be incredibly rare if Deschutes County needed to open up a new banking arrangement. And if that was happening, I wonder what is happening in the rest of the world. We have an incredible at this moment relationship with First Interstate. Thank you, Dan, for all your work. But honestly, as a county commissioner, I really don't want to lose that. I want to know what's happening when it's happening. If we need to change accounts, I undoubtedly will know what's happening because I watch the world news and I see what's happening. But if it's that rare, I do believe that this board should be still where we are. And, you said it's rare, but I don't want to lose that ability.
Just for clarification, I want to make sure I'm understanding your point as well. It's not if we are switching banks as our general banking services contract, which yes, First Interstate Bank is. It's if we just wanted to open up another account. And you're right, we have opened up one since I've been here, and we came to the board for that. But this is still maintaining. We'd have to come to the board with contract approval if we were switching general banking services provider from First Interstate Bank. That would continue to occur. This is just specific to a savings account or checking account or something.
Okay, because we get the statements now from our new treasurer with all these separate little accounts, and I see that we have $500 at Wells Fargo or something. We have a few accounts out there, but predominantly our money is in First Interstate. So therefore, I just, I'm really pleased that we're updating something from 2007. It makes complete sense in the way the world has changed, but I don't know. I still feel that makes me nervous. And I just thought, well, we are losing another bit of our authority. And I do believe that this group shouldn't be removed.
So I support the concept of possibly just leaving it to the Board of Commissioners when an account is created. So I come to that same conclusion. But basically, it's going to be a very mature process anyways. I mean, it's going to go through all the same steps. And also that annual effort, contacting the institutions, making sure we don't have any other accounts open that haven't been tracked. So just annually kind of hearing about that at the board level. This is the history of that's how money spins off sometimes and it becomes big news. So I support that concept of leaving the Board of Commissioners as the final authorization of a new bank account. So when I say that, though, what does that mean from your point of view? Is that a hassle or what, it's just because we're at a board meeting now and.
Right. We've done that before. I've done that since I've been here. It is extra step. It's administrative. Typically, those procedures are held within at other organizations. Those are held within the chief financial officer's role and responsibility, and that's why you hire that position.
Mm-hmm.
However, we can accommodate whatever the request and desire of the board is. It does take additional time, but usually we have time to.
Yeah, it's very
do
rare.
those extra processes.
So that would just be a real simple change. In fact, so I do support bringing all these together. It'll be a nice, easy package when you need to figure out, if I have a financial activity and a bank account to be appropriate, this is how you get to it. So I do support the big picture here. So just that one statement.
I would be comfortable with the proposed process for review by county treasurer, CFO, and county administrator, but if that's the preference of my fellow commissioners, but I'm not too concerned about it.
And then Commissioner Adair, is that what you're referring to?
Mhm.
Just opening a bank account?
Right. Just I still believe that we should be on the authorization. I appreciate that we're updating something from 17 years ago, but there was a reason why it was set up that way at that time. And I don't want to lose it.
Well, we're getting to be a bigger county, but as I say, opening a bank account can be a moment. So.
Or you can look at it and wonder, why do we still have $500 in a Wells Fargo account or whatever it is on that little breakdown? Like, why do we still have those accounts? What is it? How many? There's like $1 billion in Oregon that is lost revenue for people. And I would hate for us to lose any revenue.
Yeah, and just to quickly answer that as well, we do, one of the goals we have is always to try to minimize accounts and reduce accounts. And usually if we have a separate account, a couple of reasons for that. One could be location, like for instance, there is an FIB in La Pine at the moment. And so we have an account for that with US Bank, I think it is. And so that's not FIB. And then if we have another contractual relationship for our debt with FIB, then we have an account there. So there could be minor reasons for that. And again, this wouldn't be about the general banking services. It's just an individual account. So as amended, I just want to recap what I'm hearing thus far. The amended motion would be as stated, but with the amendments to the applicability in section B and retaining the language of the board approved new bank accounts.
Sounds right.
Yep. So I support that also.
So do we need to make a motion for that today?
Yes, if you could.
So I'll move approval of county administrator's signature of revised county administrative policy number F7, bank accounts.
But that's what we're not doing. F7.
It is combined all into one policy now.
It will be F7.
Okay, it will be F7, but we are going to still be where we are, right?
He's going to add that.
Yeah, and I'll clarify it.
Okay.
The language from the three approvers of treasurer, CFO, and administrator back to the language of the board of county commissioners.
Thank you.
So as I say, move approval of county administrator's signature of revised county administrative policy F7, which will be the one policy we're going to do today, referring to bank accounts, cash handling policy, and further authorize the policies F8, F9, and F11 be rescinded. And then the two amendments. So as amended, including Board of Commissioners instead of county administrator for authorization and establishment of bank accounts. And then I have it here somewhere. As amended, the other term.
Riverville County Services District.
There we go. Yep, I found it. and the removal of county services district under the governance of the Board of Commissioners in applicability.
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner DeBonne,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're at item number 9. Oh gosh, Peter, thank you. This was good.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. For the record, Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. I am here this morning just to let you know of an opportunity to potentially apply for a grant. The grant is the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Community Change Grant. I've been engaging in some preliminary conversations with some potential partners. I'm not trying to get ahead of the board or in terms of a grant or having knowing that the board ultimately has to support any type of grant application. I've just spent the last several weeks kind of vetting this possibility, and that's why I'm here this morning. So I've been coordinating with Neighbor Impact, Andrew Spreadborough, Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, the Department of Environmental Quality. And the more I'm reviewing these materials, the notice of funding opportunity, the more I'm walking away that there is a real possibility that we could be a competitive grant applicant for this community change grant. There's millions of dollars that are available for disadvantaged communities that are recognized at the federal level. There's a segment of Southern Deschutes County, it's a census tract, meets that criterion. And on the face of it, it looks like there may be opportunities to for projects that allow for septic upgrades, that allow for a demonstration project. All three commissioners are aware that these high-performing level 3 alternative treatment systems are not currently allowed in the state of Oregon. I know Commissioner DeBonne, you've had some and Commissioner Dare, you've had specific conversations with Todd Cleveland on our on-site wastewater manager. This grant could potentially allow for a demonstration project that, if the data supported it, could put DEQ in a position to amend their rules to allow these level 3 systems in Oregon and obviously in Southern Deschutes County. There's also funding that could go to building rehabilitation. There's a criterion that has to be met in terms of addressing clean air. So there's building rehabilitation opportunities. Neighbor Impact has been doing this for years in this region. So there's some synergy there. And I think this is probably the most assertive project. I say that in that I'm not sure it perfectly fits the criterion, but I think it's worth exploring at this stage is defensible space fuel reduction on private property. You know, there's partnerships, as the board's aware, with the federal government at the state level to do cleanup, fuel reduction in community areas, certainly on federal land, but on private property, that can be a little bit more challenging. So you'll see that in the memorandum, I listed that as a possibility of providing resources that help fuel reduction on defensible space on one's own property. This is an exciting opportunity. There's no match. So you're literally talking about getting resources out into the community for economic development, for environmental protection, for investments into our communities where we have residents who are financially limited, a little bit older. So I'm not looking for any action today. I just wanted to let you know, in coordination with Nick Lelak, our county administrator, just what I've been doing to date. And if the board is acceptable with this approach, I'm hoping that I could provide an update in 3 to 5 weeks as I continue to coordinate with our potential partners to hone in what could be tangible, discrete project concepts that I could come back and ultimately, if this does seem really promising, I would be in 4 to 6 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, asking for board support. It is a rigorous application. Commissioner Chang's aware of that with his time and familiarity with federal government grants. It's 35 pages plus federal, a bunch of federal forms. You really have to underscore how this grant and these investments can lead to environmental
Peter?
and economic benefits. Yes.
Excuse me, aren't you asking for 2 of them? I
You
mean,
know-
do you have to do 2 applications?
It's a great question. I think what we have on the face of it, eligible applicants can apply for up to 2 applications. The grant has to be implemented in 3 years. There's no extensions. And so what I need to do in coordination with partners is figure out what we can actually achieve in 3 years. So what's our staff capacity? What are the supply chains like? What kind of contractor availability do we have? I think my hunch tells me that we're going to be in a position to apply for 1 grant. Just given the realities of the capacity that we have at the local level with neighbor impact, with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. But I'll know more about kind of what we believe we can execute. And if it's more than $20 million, we could apply for a second grant at no penalty. There's also the administration of administering 2 potentially, multi-million-dollar grants. But on the face of it now, I feel optimistic that we certainly are competitive for 1 grant. It's imperative that we can demonstrate that we can implement this project or this grant in a 3-year period. So there's more coordination that needs to take place. So again, this is informational only. I don't want to be getting in front of the board, but I'm very aware, especially in light of the conversation that happened earlier this year with the Department of Environmental Quality, of looking for resources that can be invested in Southern Deschutes County addressing groundwater protection. And this grant certainly meets a component of that opportunity.
It does. And thank you for your research. I think this is incredibly important for South County because, when I took 7,000 old septic systems times $40,000, that's $280 million. So if we can get ahead or at least start making a huge difference down there, I think that's so worthwhile for the history of our water system.
Yeah, there's synergy with as all of you know, the COIC, Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, is coordinating currently with the Newberry Regional Partnership. So they're already engaged in community conversations. This board has directed staff to be, when we have the resources, which are forthcoming, to update the Newberry country plan. And so this grant, I didn't, it's noted in the attachments that's provided with the memoranda, but there are significant resources that also go to community engagement. I mean, that's really what has to start. You have to get out into the community, bring them, give them the opportunities to provide input, to have a voice, and obviously to promote what this grant could potentially achieve. It's really seen as a foundational piece that for local governments and partners bridges what we've done in the past, what we're doing currently, what we could do with this grant, and how we could leverage it going forward. And all of you are well aware that there are resources that will become available as the Newberry neighborhood develops that are, it's tens of millions of dollars that can be reinvested into the community. So there's a lot of synergy here that underscores the good work that's been done to date, albeit it's not It's not perfect. There's still a lot that has to be done, but this grant could continue to build that bridge and make some real inroads, sorry for the puns, into the community. But it's pretty exciting. And again, I wanted to bring it to your attention, make sure you were comfortable with the continued coordination. And like I said, the conversations I've had with Greg Sweelan, with Andrew Spreadborough, Greg Sweelan being with the Department of Environmental Quality, Andrew Spreadborough with Neighbor Impact, and Julia at Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council, so I can't remember her last name at the moment, have all been very, very receptive to continuing this conversation and seeing how we can make this work in a collaborative way, consistent with the grant.
Great.
Thank you. Thank
No.
you for the opportunity.
One question, so the census tract is you sent the note about this and I was able to study, but tell me about how that census tract is, what is it relative to? Is it how do we define the census tract? It was what I was scratching.
So it's a good question, Commissioner DeBone. The grant, the Environmental Protection Agency Community Change Grant is targeting disadvantaged communities. And the federal government defines those through census. And so that's like obviously the first bar is to determine, do we have these disadvantaged communities in our county? And we do. It's a large census tract. It doesn't cover all of Southern Deschutes County, but it covers a good portion of it, which I've summarized in the memorandum. And $50 million of this grant opportunity are targeted to unincorporated disadvantaged communities. So this grant can only go to those geographic areas. And so that's why it's included in the memorandum.
Whose map is that, I guess?
It's the federal government. It's U.S. Census, but it's the Environmental Protection Agency that has through their criteria has identified that this area meets I'll put it in quotes, disadvantaged community status. Some of that is, due to income, due to age, due to its remote setting, vulnerability to wildfire. I think there's the other socioeconomic indicators. There's some health indicators that show life expectancy isn't as high as in other parts of the county. So that's how it was identified.
So a couple of thoughts. Since there's that study area, the kind of the big rectangle of the nitrate study area, it includes Northern Klamath. So let's just not forget that. I just think about that rectangle, and obviously the county line is there. So even if it's just a cursory review, look for parallel opportunities right over the county line, possibly. And it's probably a function of density. I think the density is not the same as up and down Day Road area where it's all 1 acre lots, but just looking for that opportunity. And then since we had our presentation at the joint chamber meeting, I mentioned the Newberry Country Plan, and it was asked about when that's going to be updated, which we'll work on that at some point. But I pulled it out, printed it out, looked at all the parts and pieces of it. And as I suggested when I was speaking, please pull it off the shelf and look at it. It's a great starting point right now. And one of the policies in there, we'll have a annual meeting, I think, with our planning commission in Southern Deschutes County. That's one of our policies. Oh boy, did we let that slip since COVID. So just advocating for that. Let's look for that opportunity at some point.
And I realized today, looking at this map with Portland in it, we're not on that map. So is there a map for us that
the only disadvantaged area that we have in Deschutes County is this one.
the only one?
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the, and it doesn't cover all of Southern Deschutes County. So there's
that's why I was
wreck home sites. I think again, it's not to say that we're ignoring the groundwater vulnerability in those areas. Is a part of the conversation that we will have as part of the Newberry Country update, and even with the Newberry Regional Partnership. There are resources that can be made available. Of course, it's in coordination with the Board of County Commissioners as the Newberry neighborhood develops. Those resources automatically go into a groundwater partnership fund, and so it's there. those resources can be reinvested. If we're successful in this grant, other resources can be broadly distributed in our South County area. So it's not to dismiss or ignore that specific area. It just came down to the eligible area recognized by U.S. Census.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll keep
So, so Peter, I do have quite a lot of experience with federal grants, and most of it prior to the time when I worked in a congressional office, which is congressional offices are typically filled with people who don't actually understand how hard it is to apply for federal grants. So my first questions are just about kind of you've described why we're eligible for this program, but I do want to get a feel for competitiveness of this program and of application that might come from us, and so to evaluate competitiveness, typically my first stop would be the actual granting agency itself. I know you've mentioned you talked to organizations that are helpful with federal grant applications. You talk to DEQ, which is kind of is often implementing federal guidance, but I'm wondering if we have talked directly to a grant program person at EPA about this, and if so, it would be really great to assess from them how many communities are applying for these funds across the nation, because $2.8 billion sounds like a lot of money until you think about all of the economically disadvantaged or environmentally impacted communities across the United States. So thoughts on that? Any of that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Commissioner Chang. I did reach out to the Environmental Protection Agency. I should back up. The Environmental Protection Agency, specifically in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, cannot provide any guidance on one's eligibility, competitiveness, or qualifications. Having said that, if you'll note it in the grant materials in the attachment that $200 million, it's a lot of money, have been assigned for technical assistance for potential grant applications, and to also to help one apply for a grant. The first thing I did when Greg Sweeland alerted me to this grant opportunity is there's the ability to leave a voice message, leave a voice message, and apply online for some of this technical assistance at the federal level. There is a backlog. There's over 400 inquiries, so we're in the queue. But I was still able to communicate, as noted in the memorandum, with some local organizations, Willamette Partnership, the Center for Creative Land and Recycling, and I'm happy to share what they offered, which was we are far along in the conversations that they've had in the state of Oregon. We are further ahead in our understanding of the grant opportunity, of the partnerships that we potentially possess. So I took that feedback for what it was worth, and it was validating to continue the conversation. So having said that, I'm looking forward to talking ultimately with the technical assistance resources. I do think, the grant application, you don't have to have previous relationships with what's called a community-based organization. That's a non-governmental organization of which Neighbor Impact meets. So for some, they can formulate that relationship. We already have these relationships in place today, which is, I didn't put it in the memoranda, but I have a Venn diagram that shows how our existing partnerships with Neighbor Impact, with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. COIC is currently allocating resources from ARPA funds through the Department of Environmental Quality to do septic upgrades. Neighbor Impact, as you know, we've had partnerships with them for revolving loan funds for property owners that don't qualify for conventional loans to upgrade their septic systems. Neighbor Impact already provides resources for, we'll call it housing weatherization. So, and of course, we have relationship with the Department of Environmental Quality. And so, Commissioner Chang, it's a longer response, but these relationships matter. These success stories matter, and I think, all things being equal, we can leverage those partnerships and our institutional knowledge that we have here and with these organizations to demonstrate why we're so competitive. The other, if I can offer one other piece, I was talking to a colleague of ours in the finance department just to kind of understand how you apply potentially online. And the fact that this county has received $39 million in ARPA funding, you have to demonstrate as an organization that you have experience with federal funds. Well, there's been annual audits. We've demonstrated our ability to not only manage, but to execute federal funding. So it's not, I can't give a guarantee if we find ourselves and the board supports a grant application, but I think we stand a competitive opportunity from what I understand today and based on the relationships and experiences that we've had today and most recently.
No, it sounds like a very good fit, and we have a lot of work that we would be building on that we can point to. And you mentioned the Newberry neighborhood and the Groundwater Protection Fund. I mean, even though there's no match required for this, demonstrating a track record of investing in South County groundwater quality protection is really good. And also you could, mention without, even without a match requirement that there are resources in the community that can be focused on this. I still am concerned about the demand end of the equation. So one of the other things I would suggest is that we talk with congressional staffers. This is what congressional staffers can do that's helpful in these processes, which is they can sort of dig around. They can ask questions of the EPA to understand kind of what the potential national demand for programs like this. What kind of, if I understand this is a new program, but if there has been any funding granted so far, they can kind of learn about some of those things for us. And that might be illustrative, of what kind of projects might be in the sweet spot for the EPA. So I would suggest that a part of your research in the next couple of weeks includes a discussion with some of the congressional staffers, and I can help connect you with people.
You have points of contact beyond just what one might find on the websites of our congressional delegation. That'd be very helpful. I know that
and I'm actually having lunch with one tomorrow.
Okay.
So perfect timing.
There was a amendment to the notice of funding opportunity. They were hoping that so this is a rolling application period. I don't know if I mentioned that. So it was initially opened in November of 2023. We have until applicants have until November of 2024 to submit an application into the federal government. They were hoping to have the first awards announced this month, and that's now been pushed back they're hoping that awards will be announced in April, and then cooperative agreements will be signed by the month of June. So we don't have any examples to date, but certainly in the next month or so we will. But yeah, I'd be happy to reach out to the congressional staffs to get whatever input and feedback that we can utilize to potentially apply for a grant. The other thing that I don't want to get ahead of the board, but to the extent that we that I'm coming back with a respectful request to support the grant application. There's a lot of coordination that will go into it, significant budget details to demonstrate that we can implement in 3 years. And I will likely need some assistance from long-range planning. I don't think it's a lot, but it's not nothing. And just to prepare the board that with a request potentially of preparing the grant application, my goal would be to get it submitted by the end of May, early June at the latest. That I may need to utilize some long range planning staff, and that could, I just want the board to be aware of what that means in terms of our work plan. The timing is, of course, I think excellent. We're going to be updating our we're going to be updating the work plan for fiscal year 25. So, just wanted to alert the board to that possibility.
So Peter, did you say they would announce the winners in April of, was it 25 then?
No. So it's a rolling application period. So as applications are submitted, they're getting reviewed and either being rejected or some will be accepted. They're going to announce, they wanted to announce the first series of awards
In this April?
of 2024. That's been pushed to April.
Oh, it's been pushed
But
already.
It's a rolling application period. So the deadline for submitting a grant is November of 2024, but we would be well served to submit as soon as we can. Again, all things being equal, in the event that in the event an application is rejected, there's the opportunity to reapply. If there's, they wanted you to embellish or provide additional information. So that's another advantage of applying in, late spring, to the extent that, they wanted a refinement, we could potentially meet that. But I believe that all things being equal with the board's support, that will give the EPA a lot to think about. I think we're very competitive on its face.
So in the queue of 400, are we 400?
What you mean in total, in terms of the number of applicants?
Yeah, where are we? Because you said we're in the queue, and I'm just wondering,
Well,
when they tell you they're going to call you back in 30 minutes.
I'm just being I'm being optimistic that
Okay.
if we submit an application, I think we will be very, very competitive. The input that I received from the Willamette Partnership and the Center for Creative Land Recycling is that we are so far, the conversations that I was having with them were so far refined and advanced that they were communicating that in the state of Oregon, we were well ahead of any, I don't know, what do we call them? Potential competitors. So, and as the board is aware, and a reminder for Commissioner Chang, Nick and I administered a US EPA grant for brownfields about just approximately 10 years ago. That was a very successful project. Of course, 10 years before that, there was the EPA National Demonstration Project, of which we are partners. So we have experience with EPA, most recently, approximately 10 years ago, and we have current experience administering federal funding through ARPA. So I don't think that can be discounted.
Great.
Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, Peter.
in
Thank you
touch.
for this project.
Yeah, I mean, the one other thing I would say is I'm excited about this program and appreciative that there's pieces like this in the Inflation Reduction Act that might serve communities like us. But more broadly, the research you're going to do, the framing of a project you're going to do, sets us up to seek funding from other places as well. I mean, this could very easily be rolled into, a state legislative ask in the future, for example. So, glad that we're engaging in the process of thinking of, proactively about what we're going to do in South County about nitrate contamination issues.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Chang, and I don't know if the other two commissioners know, but Commissioner Chang was alerted to another potential federal grant that Greg Sweeland and I kind of evaluated, it didn't seem like a perfect fit, but no, I think we want to demonstrate that we're being resourceful and taking the initiative to evaluate those possibilities when they present themselves. So yeah, we'll be, I'll look forward to those congressional contacts and look forward to circling back to the board, likely in late March, early April. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, we now go to item number 10. Jen, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager. This morning, I am here before you to discuss potential next steps for the Fort Thompson Road property. As a refresher, the county engaged in a camping feasibility study. That study was completed this past fall. We have county staff has direction on current next steps for Drafter Road, and now there's been some interest from some commissioners, potentially a commissioner, on next steps for Fort Thompson Road. In the camping feasibility study, the consultants listed out several different grant opportunities. One of those is the Oregon Parks and Recreation grant opportunity. This grant opportunity opens on August 1st. It is specifically for counties and specifically for recreational campgrounds. And so we're just here. I'm here today to see if there's interest in having staff start to put together resources and staff time to potentially pursue a grant opportunity with the state for the Fort Thompson Road property. And I can provide as much detail as needed in there, or I can open it up for board discussion and be happy to answer any questions.
Jen, is our campgrounds the only thing that this specific Park and Rec Department grant program is focused on, or is it just it's one of the things?
This particular program, I have it pulled up, so let me not misquote it. This particular program is for it says for qualified projects. All of those qualified projects that they do list on their webpage has to do with campgrounds. Some previous past projects that were approved were things like restroom facilities at existing county campgrounds, master plans for campgrounds. So it's been, from what I can see, focused on development or improvement of campgrounds on county-owned property or county-owned long-term lease property or county long-term lease properties.
Thank you.
I remember when I was reading the report, we have a zoning issue because we're outside the UGB. And I actually have a private project on 57 acres right next door for single wide manufactured homes that is outside the UGB. And it really seems like in order to be successful with this project, we really need to work on the legislators to add the UGB on the north end of Bend in order to bring all this property in. So wasn't the cost like projected to be $21 million?
That was a cost. That was a projected cost for the Fort Thompson Road fully expanded, using all of the property at Fort Thompson Road and expanding it out to, I think, around a 500 campground facility site. We also have, since the study came out, we got some clarification. Our consultants looked into a couple of questions, particularly on the zoning issues, and we received some feedback from DLCD, and the interpretation from our consultants on there is that this is particularly for Fort Thompson Road, for the zoning of Fort Thompson Road, is that if the county identifies the park as a desired improvement in the county's park master plans and owns the park and manages it as a county park, then
So we have to manage it and manage.
For this particular clarification, that it is an allowable use in an EFU. So that's one route. I think there's more than one route to explain. There are some challenges with the zonings identified for Fort Thompson.
So I'd be supportive of looking into that zone. That's more interesting right now than this. So this, asking for money for moving this forward is a little bit less clear right now that because of the zoning, I guess is my thought. I would be supportive of taking a big look picture at the county either starting a rezoning or evaluating what that looks like, just the scoping it, just to understand that step. So, I hadn't heard the information about the county running it in that zone, in the current zone. Yeah.
That is, that is information that the consultants brought back to us, unfortunately after after they had published a final report, but it lays out a very clear path through identification in a county park master plan, which would be a sub plan to our comp plan. There's a very clear path to proceed with this with the current zoning. It's a non-issue. And then the other thing I would mention, I've had quite a lot of conversations with people about the Fort Thompson property in the last couple of months. And there is a possibility that we could partner on this project with the Bend Park and Rec District. So that would be a whole nother pathway to development of the park, both in terms of land use and in terms of potential funding partnerships. Because within 500 acres, 500 acres is bigger than Tumalo State Park. Within 500 acres, there's a lot of room for a campground, trails, play fields of various kinds, and the park district, based on where they are in their master plan, this isn't the right moment right now to add something, but if we kind of flesh out a concept, there would be room to advocate for inclusion in the park district's master plan in a couple of years. So the feasibility analysis did a really broad brush economic look and look at possible areas for development of of a campground within the 500 acres, but it by no means was substantive design work, which is in my mind what we could do with these funds right now. We could also, if there was a desire to look at draft or road properties, for this program, we could do that as well. But it seems like the current interest in draft or road is to put out an RFP to see if someone else wants to develop it. So this is the one that's currently still on our plate or on our radar screen, and the idea of bringing it up now was to be ready for to submit an application in August if we are going to submit an application, because you can't just decide this in a week and crank out a proposal for a funding.
And just to clarify the date, the grant opportunity opens on August 1st and closes on October 1st. But yes, there would be some, I think, significant staff time in preparing that grant opportunity. And one of those opportunities that the grant can be used for is to determine a parks master plan. So there's planning opportunities. There's a wide variety of venues one could go down for that grant opportunity.
Well, yeah, so I'm supportive of moving something forward here. As I say, sounds like, Commissioner Chang, you're very deep into some of the possibilities. I'd like to learn more. I'm not studying it and, on the side right now, but I'm supportive of moving forward.
I mean, basically the feasibility study identified a bunch of potential fatal flaws, and I've been trying to track each one of those down to understand whether they're a real fatal flaw or not. And so we've researched the land use. I think that funding is the price tag is a potential fatal flaw. That's why, I've had some discussions about partnership. Access is a potential fatal flaw. And so we've learned more about, possibilities for access off of Highway 97 or Fort Thompson Road. One of the other potential issues, which isn't so much a fatal flaw for a campground, but would be a real problem for trail development in that area, is the need for canal crossings. So I went and had a in-depth discussion with the Swally Irrigation District Board about their timelines for piping that specific chunk of canal, and potentially what allies could do to help them speed that up, so that we could realize the mutual benefits of getting a chunk of canal piped, developing hydropower opportunities, and then being able to cross that canal right away and give people on bikes and on foot and on horses access to a whole bunch more area in terms of trails. So those are some of the early conversations I've had just to research some of the potential fatal flaws of this project. But there are a lot of other really exciting discussions to be had about, who's supportive, who can bring something to the table in terms of dollars or volunteer power or other kinds of resources. That I feel like we're very early in the process. And actually, if we secured funding for a master planning process or a design process, then we could actually engage all those people, and it wouldn't be something that I'm just doing in the little bit of time that I can allocate to researching this.
So I'm hearing there is potentially some interest in staff moving forward in exploring opportunities for this grant program.
And I said I would actually like to see rezoning, expanding the UGB at the north end of Bend, because I think about the housing project right behind it on 57 acres with, the single wide manufactured home park. And that project will not get a look unless we do rezoning, and they're right all off of Port Thompson Lane. So, it's a 50% win. I can't imagine we're going to get that much money, but if you did a grant, you said, what is it, up to $500,000?
So there's no requirements for the grants. I've looked at past grants that have been awarded, and the most recent year published was 2021. The smallest grant awarded was $57,000, and the largest grant awarded was about $500,000. I did speak with the person who oversees this program for the state, and they anticipate around having $1 million available for the grant opportunity coming. It's for the 2025 grant opportunity, because that's when they actually award the funds, but opening in 2024 summer of 2024. So they expect about $1 million to be in that pool. They don't have the final set number yet, but there didn't appear to be a limitation on how much we apply for. We just know what that pool is. I think the last grants that were awarded, it went to 4 or 5 different counties throughout the state.
It is competitive. And if we did, let's say we were awarded $1 million, then the county would have to cough up $1 million too.
Yeah, so there's a 50% match. I did a little bit more exploration of the match. There are things like labor and time that can be used for that match. And one of these sub points in there was land donation. And so I have a call out to the state to see what that means, if that means the land that we're already currently using, or if it means something else. So I don't have clarification on that yet. So there may be opportunities for the 50% match not to be strictly dollar amount.
Well, I'm supportive of proceeding, and then getting clarity on this whole subject also. And we'll do that over time.
Great. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, we're at application number 11.
Yep.
Morning,
Janice.
commissioners.
Morning, Janice.
Sorry, I can't be there in person today. I'm back to back in Zoom meetings. So I am joining you this way. I'm Janice Garceau, Director of Health Services. I'm here today to request permission to apply for Central Oregon Health Council Behavioral Health Surplus Funds that would help us serve older adults as well as persons receiving respite services at the Deschutes County Stabilization Center. The application was due. This has been a very fast turnaround time on this particular opportunity. The application was due at the end of last week, and I've gotten an extension so that I could bring this to you before submitting the actual formal application to the Health Council. This involves dollars that the Health Council receives as a result of surplus in the CCO's, in the Pacific Source, the Coordinated Care Organization's budget. Those dollars can be used for behavioral health services that are not eligible for reimbursement under the Medicaid contract. So it can, in short, cover uncovered costs. There is a total of, I believe, roughly, I think 4 million potentially available. We are applying for a total amount of $902,358,000. Those amounts are very specific because they specifically covered uncovered costs within those service areas. And you have two budget outline documents in your materials that sort of spell that out. The older adults program serves Deschutes County older adults with serious mental illness. It provides a lot of pre-treatment work to older adults because often older adults with behaviors manifesting that may look like mental illness, there's a process of assessment to determine whether in fact what they're struggling with is a mental illness or whether it's dementia or a physiological condition of aging that is causing disruptive behaviors. So a lot of the work done on the front end is working with a care provider or facility to understand what's going on, to reach in to assess whether or not this is someone who's eligible for behavioral health services. So those are some of the non-reimbursable costs of this service. And then the other unreimbursable costs are many of the training, teaching, support to entities that are supporting these folks in the community that's really intended to keep them stable in their placement. So if an older adult is really struggling and is not able to maintain their placement, these are often folks who can end up unhoused or in less than ideal housing. So we do a lot of work with care providers and with agencies to support those folks. In terms of the Stabilization Center, you're very familiar, obviously, with the work of the Stabilization Center, but one of the struggles with the Stabilization Center has been, as you know, ongoing stable funding for that offering, which is a 24/7 facility. And specifically, these dollars would be applied to respite services. So that is the service that requires us to be open 24 hours a day, to be able to offer 23-hour respite to individuals in acute crisis and in need of a safe, quiet place where they can receive services. Much of that time is non-billable. There's no code to bill for somebody being in your facility for 11 hours, but there are costs associated. And so the request for Health Council funds is really to cover those uncovered costs. So that is the size of it. Both of these awards, if applied for and granted, would not add staff. They would cover uncovered costs. The only position that is directly impacted is right now the older adults team has a limited duration position that is set to term June 30th, and these dollars would allow us to simply maintain that FTE. It's I think currently budgeted, but it would maintain that FTE into next fiscal year without incurring additional cost.
Janice, I do have a question. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's $902,358.
Yeah.
Is the $384,000 in that number, or is that an additional part of the grant application that you're
It's
asking?
in that number. So it's
It
500.
is in that number. That's
yeah.
what I was thinking you were saying.
Yeah, it's 517,500 for Stabilization Center services, and the budget detail that you have outlines what that covers. And then it's $384,858 for the uncovered costs of the older adults program. And it's sort of delineated how that plays out. It's a little bit complicated, but
Right. Any other questions?
Well, I guess I'd just say that I'm so happy that we are providing these services currently to these important populations. You know, people in crisis, older adults who are struggling with mental health and addiction issues. And it's great to be able to actually get our costs covered for these important services that we're providing. So I just really appreciate health services thinking about how to connect, services we're already providing that are really important with funding opportunities to make sure that we are adequately covered.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, I'm happy to make a motion.
Sure, that'd be great.
I move to authorize the application for Central Oregon Health Council Behavioral Health Surplus Funds to serve older adults as well as persons receiving respite at the Stabilization Center.
And I will second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner DeBonne?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
We're now at other items.
Ooh, other items coming up.
Here she is.
Hey, Commissioners, again, Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager. I have just two brief items to bring before you today. The first one is we had a email from Rooted Homes wanting to see if the county wanted to opt in to as an employer sponsored for the sustainable and affordable homes that are going up on Simpson Road. As a reminder or refresher, the Simpson Road property was sold at a deep discount from the county to Rooted Homes for affordable workforce housing. And then they are now at the stages of opening up their workforce housing applications for those homes there. The employer opt-in, the employer partnership opt-in does require that the employer provide the closing costs at an estimated of $10,000 per home. So I think at this time, staff recommendation is potentially not to opt in as an employer partnership, but I will leave it up to the commissioners for discussion. The employer partnership does give preference to applications from employees of that employer partnership, but any person can still apply for those workforce housings. So it doesn't exclude them from applying if there's not an employer partnership.
So what you just said is our employees could still apply. If we don't approve
Correct.
the match.
So so for people who do apply for workforce housing, who have an employer partnership with their current employer, are given preference in the rating system of the application. But it does not, if there is no employer partnership, it does not exclude somebody from applying for that workforce housing.
Thank you.
They would just get more points in the lottery.
That's correct.
Well, yeah, I support that recommendation at this point in time. And, anything coming online is going to be good for anybody that can be working out there too.
So you're supporting the recommendation to not to support it. Mr. Chang?
I'm torn because I know that housing is a critically important piece of the recruitment and retention discussions we're having for the county. But I'm also not sure, from that perspective, this seems like a great opportunity. But I'm also not sure whether we shouldn't be thinking about housing support as part of recruitment and retention efforts in a more comprehensive way than this. This could just sort of be like a random act of kindness, which doesn't really add up to much benefit in terms of our recruitment and retention strategies, because we're not doing it in a coordinated way with recruitment and retention. So So I kind of like the idea, but I also think that there's something else probably that we should be doing that would serve recruitment and retention more.
Are there not 40 cottages that Rooted is doing there?
Yeah, this is, it appears that there's going to be 40 housing opportunities.
Right.
40 energy efficiency homes. Yep.
Yes, they're incredible. They do such a great job. I do know we have a home project that I'm waiting on, that home project, whatever, where we allocated $500,000 for, and I'm really hoping that that will happen sooner rather than maybe this year, 2024. I really appreciate Rooted Homes, what they do. Perhaps at this moment in time, we need to get our $500,000 project really going. So I would be the only vote if I did vote for it. So,
well, I mean, I would vote for it if you wanted to move in that way, but I also I just don't think it's the most impactful thing we can be doing towards recruitment and retention.
But yeah, I think it is something of value, and we've got a lot of different departments and a lot of different recruitments going on at different levels. So then how do we implement that into a package of a incentive? That's what I see. It'd be pretty tricky to make it fair for even what department even gets access to it, or do we do an internal lottery to give somebody the opportunity that somebody else doesn't have? So that's what I think of. It just gets real complicated.
it seems incredibly complicated. So maybe not at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one other item.
Yes.
This one should be pretty quick. We received an email from Congresswoman Chavez DeRemer's office, just notifying us of the congressionally directed funding opportunities. Her office has opened up that opportunity and wanted to see if the county had any projects. I believe in several past discussions, the commissioners have indicated for a variety of different reasons not to pursue these fundings. And I just wanted to confirm publicly that we didn't have any projects we wanted to pursue on the county's behalf.
Well, we might want to pursue the one that Peter just brought up for South County, but that seems,
It's a different.
yeah, that's a different. So anyway, yes, no, the federal debt, what is it? The interest now on the debt is 800 billion. It's going to go up to $1 trillion. And no, I'm trying not to ask for any federal money. I'm trying to be really consistent. I didn't sign the letter for Rooted Homes, and I love their program. They do a great job.
I'd just say I really appreciate that Representative Chavez DeRemer is exploring congressionally directed spending allocations. The way that these work is very different than earmarks historically worked, which were done on top of budgeted funds for various agencies. These are, these congressionally directed spending allocations are coming out of the top line numbers for the various departments of the federal government. And so someone will be getting those funds. And, I really like the idea of a ground up, identification of urgently needed federally supported projects at the community by community level. So when I was in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago, I did have a meeting with Representative Chavez DeRemer's staff, and I at that time I expressed support for a couple of different projects, including the Rooted Homes and Housing Works West Antler campus that they are working on developing in Redmond. So, I don't think we have anything from the county that we are that would be ripe to put forward. But just so everyone knows, I appreciate that Representative Chavez DeRemer is supporting some CDS requests, and I put in support on a couple of projects with her office.
And that's fine. Let's just leave it there.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Any other items?
I'll just report that we had a meeting of the Public Health Advisory Board yesterday. One of the items that the FAB kind of processed in depth was potential need for a different fee structure for inspections for the Environmental Health Division. So we might see some of that. We might see a recommendation from the FAB when that piece of our budget deliberations happens in May. The local public safety coordinating council met yesterday, and there was a very in-depth discussion about what the Measure 110 reform package, HB 4002, would do for our region. There was pretty widespread support for the program. I asked questions about how deflection was actually going to work, because there are all kinds of county staff people who are going to need to be part of that part of that process: behavioral health, deputy DAs, community justice, and others. So I hope that we are thinking at the local level, within county, about what we need to do to make those processes, those deflection and diversion processes, successful. In 20 minutes, I'm going to get on a meeting around prescribed fire smoke management for the upcoming field season. This group that's going to be meeting every Wednesday, I guess, for the next few months, is specifically focused on expanding prescribed burn acreage in the West Bend project area on the Deschutes National Forest. Tomorrow I'll be participating. I was asked to sit on the rulemaking advisory committee for the state wildfire hazard maps, along with there's a handful of county commissioners who will be sitting on that rulemaking advisory committee, and we'll be trying to take some of the input we've received from constituents, from our incorporated cities, and integrating that into the maps that are ultimately published for the state. And also tomorrow I'll be giving a talk with Phil Fine, who's a North Union Irrigation District director, about water in agriculture, to the people who are convening that forum is the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County. And that's open to, that's a, open invite, open attendance event.
Thank you.
Nothing.
Okay, and I do want to report that yesterday, South Bend had incredibly challenging road conditions. We did have our safe parking information session at Bend City Hall. And the good news is that presentation from several of the churches in the area, Nativity Lutheran, Antioch Fellowship, Antioch Church, and the Unitarian Fellowship all did their presentations along with Central Oregon Villages. So we're going to be able to share that with different pastors in our community in order to learn more about the good news that safe parking is providing in our community, and hopefully expand it. So several people did attend. Thank you, Roger Olson, for being there, who is the chair of our behavioral health group. So it was a good event, and I'm so appreciative of all the energy that they put into getting the word out. So anything else? Do we have any executives today? Okay. All right. So I believe we can adjourn then. Thank you so much. We do not have a meeting on Monday. That's AOC Day. So we'll have a meeting the following Wednesday on the 13th. Thank you.
Thank you.